Hello, everyone. We are on the Career and Spirituality Summit again. I'm Julie Pone, your host, and today I'm honored to have Alex Terranova with us to discuss how we can be more fulfilled in our careers by bringing more spiritual alignments into what we're doing. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love the combination. Normally people are like career or spirituality, and they have to be separate. So I love that you're bringing them together because I personally think they're completely intertwined.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So just to introduce you briefly, you're a performance alchemist. I love that title. You're also a coach, you're an author, you wrote the book Redefining Masculinity. You're also a podcast host. You have a great podcast called, the Dream Mason podcast. I like that name as well. And taking advantage for our viewers to attract their attention on, because something I really like about you. I think that you have a beautiful voice that's very soothing and grounding. So you. Like guys, sit down, and really kind of plug your ears in. And you've been actually called the anti-excuse coach. How cool is that? And I thought, okay, so that sounds like the tough love approach to getting people out of their own way. And I like as well that the way you're talking about yourself, saying that you're a self-acknowledged recovering asshole and transformation junkie. So the very original way to describe yourself. So, and we'll talk about it a little bit, of course. But first of all, my first question is always, well, career, we know what it is, it's fairly clear, but because spirituality is a little bit, can change a little bit from one definition to another, what is actually your definition of it, your relationship to spirituality?
Really quick, before I say that, I just want, if people go look at my book, I don't want them to get lost. The book I wrote is called Fictional Authenticity. Oh. And then I was a co-author of a book called Redefining Masculinity. So if people look up my name, they might not see Redefining Masculinity because I co-authored it, but they'll see Fictional Authenticity. But thank you for that introduction. Okay. That was great. I feel special when I hear myself be introduced. What is my definition of spirituality? Gosh, it's so unique to every person. I think that's one of the biggest issues with spirituality is we've put it in boxes, right? It has to be Christian or Judaism or Hindu or, more modern New Age spirituality. And I think that for me, spirituality is your personal relationship to whatever you believe, God, the universe, right? You could be Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, it doesn't matter. I think true spirituality is your relationship to that thing instead of someone else's defined relationship, right? That's typically, to me, that's the difference between religion and spirituality is religion says, this is how your relationship to God either should be, needs to be, or the best way to do it. And I think spirituality is like there's no middleman. You get to connect with whatever you feel is bigger, and then you get to decide how to connect. It's more of a personal and intimate relationship. I think it's kind of, if I had to make like a metaphor, it's like if somebody's told me how I should relate to my partner, well, that's not taking my partner or me into consideration. It's just saying a very rigid box structure. And I think that to me is what makes it special, is I get to evolve it, create it, and change it over time so it fits who I am and who I'm becoming.
I love that. I love the idea of intimacy, and in a way which ties into authenticity, I guess, which we're going to be talking quite a lot, I think, today. So, and Alex, so can you tell us a bit about your own story? How did you become, well, a Dream Mason?
Well, yeah, and I'll tie this into spirituality because my journey to spirituality, I think, is I don't think it's unique. I think it's actually very common. I grew up, my dad is Italian and was Catholic, and my mom is her background is Russian and Polish, and her background is Jewish. And as a little kid, they decided they were going to raise us Jewish. And my dad, it wasn't very important. My mom, it was important. But for me, I felt from a really young age, I did not connect with it. I did not like the rules or the structure. I just really didn't feel like it was true for me. And when I say really young age, I'm talking about like 7 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, as parents, what do? Do you listen to a 7-year-old or do you tell them what to do? I don't know if I'm not the parental expert, but my parents kind of pushing me or forcing me to do something that really, it wasn't just that I didn't like it. It really felt like it wasn't for me, had me push against it so much that I grew up almost like, I think one of my first traumas is religious trauma, because I was simply forced to do, you know, and nothing, this is nothing serious, right? It wasn't like, you know, there's lots of serious religious trauma, but for me, it was simply being forced to do things I didn't want to do when I wanted to be playing sports and being with my friends. And so I grew up pretty much going, there's no God. Spirituality and religion are crap. They're not real. It's, you know, if you believe in those things, I would actually say to people, if you believe in God, you're dumb. You know, I was very, very, very anti. And it even would mess with me in my serious relationships if I dated someone who had some sort of faith, right? Like it made it challenging. And the first time I remember confronting that myself was a coach that I knew said to me, every time we talk about religion or spirituality, it sounds like a little boy shows up. And I went, oh, and I kind of thought, you know, I really was trying to develop myself at this point. This was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And I thought about it. And this woman, my friend Robbie, she said to me, if a little boy, Alex, wasn't driving the bus on spirituality, what might be different? And that opened up, right, me thinking about, gosh, you know, all the ways that I was kind of letting this 7-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever, run the show when it came to God, spirituality, religion. And so one of the first things I did was I just started kind of reading books about spirituality, reading books about religion, and just trying to get back to a open mind. So let me jump forward to make a long story short. I really realized, for me, it wasn't religion that I was looking for. That's really what I was pushing against, somebody forcing me to do something. But what really did connect with me was I really did believe that there is something more powerful. There has to be something that, you know, whether we believe it's energy or the universe or some God that you believe in, I think that we're all really connecting with that same thing. We just give it different names. And for me, it was about finding ways to craft that in a way that didn't just work for me, but challenged me.
Ah, interesting.
And I love the challenging part, because faith is not easy, right? When things get tough, we question our faith. And I think that for me, it was about, how do I have faith even when I can't see something? I'm that kind of person. It's like, if I can't see it, it can't be real.
Yeah.
But when I started listening to gurus, they would talk about how, well, like if you hold your hand up, you can't see the other side of your hand, but it's there.
Yeah.
And like very subtle things like that. It made me go, gosh, there are so many things that we can't see or smell or taste or touch that do exist. And that kind of walked me on. So spirituality to me evolved, and it's evolved through friends and through experiences like meditation and coaches and going to like full moon rituals and all. Like I pretty much put myself in different situations and look at and listen to that voice that's like, you need this, or you want this, or follow this. So if you're sitting, I mean, you can see me right now. I have a sound bowl behind me.
Yeah.
That's part of my spirituality. When I sit down at my desk, I create that vibration, and I just put my feet on the ground, and it kind of grounds me, right? Connects me with the earth. And to me, the earth is, you know, the mother of everything. I have behind me some crystals on my desk. In front of me, there's, I'm trying to grab one. There's some cards, like almost like tarot style cards. And so I don't believe any of these things are like magic. What I'll do is I'll pull a card, and like the one I just showed you says spirit guardian, and it's very native with animals. And I'll look at it and say, what does that mean to me? What does it trigger for me? What comes up for me? So instead of the little book that it comes with saying, do this, do this, do this, which is fine, I say, what do I think I need to take from this? What is this card trying to tell me? And I don't think it's right or it has to be perfectly accurate, but only the things that I can connect with or that I need will show up. Something for you won't show up in my consciousness from that. So
it's funny, it's like intimacy again, and it's like spirituality from the inside out versus maybe when you were talking about religion, I don't want, that maybe to us, because I've been very much like you, very anti at some stage in my life. To us, he might have seen maybe more from the outside, something that's imposed from the outside. But the way you describe it is beautiful. It's like something that's very intimate and it's coming from inside.
Yeah, and it's constantly being reborn or recreated. So sometimes if I'm having a hard day, having one of those days, one of those weeks, I'll burn sage, I'll get quiet, I'll pull a card, I'll listen to what comes through. Sometimes I'll write, use the sound bowl. But what I notice is the spirituality comes through in the quiet, in the faith, in the trust, in the listening between you and something else. Have you ever, this is for me how I feel like, how I know it's real, is when I get quiet and I listen, thoughts come that I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
I've never had a thought like that before.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's one word. I did a practice for the new year about what do I want to have as a breakthrough or a goal for myself for 2022. And I asked myself the question, and I was meditating and I'd burned some sage and I was sitting quietly and I heard, oh, surrender, trust, all the kind of normal. And I went, no, that's like what my brain is doing that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the word valor came through.
Valor. Yeah.
And I went, well, where did that come from? I don't use that word. I don't know the last time I heard that word. I even had to look it up to really see what it meant. And I went, well, I think that's it. Because I'm asking, I'm putting myself out there. And then there's something else that I'm like, almost like plugging into. Yeah. That to me is really spirituality. Also, when we see it in places like when we see synchronicities or coincidences that just seem to line up so perfectly. Having a conversation with my girlfriend about what's next for our relationship. Yeah. And then all of a sudden things line up in my house or her house how did it happen? Like, how is it that we made a decision and then things come through, like rent prices change, or you find a reason that you have to move, or a job situation changes and you're like, man, there's something that's kind of must be on our side and supporting us, because things just don't happen by accident. There's too much, we know through energy and relativity and science that like everything is cause and effect. So there's got to be something else at play.
Yeah, and it's funny when you're describing that, because as I said, I was very much like you. Like I had a phase where I was totally anti. I had put everything in the same bucket, religion, and I ditched that. And as and through my journey, I realized that actually I had ditched everything out. So I had spirituality with it. But then I realized that actually the whole concept, because I thought, and I used to say I believed in nothing, but in fact, it has nothing to do with belief, because there is something, there is an energy, there is a field that science is now very much more and more describing and making sense of. So the whole time it wasn't a question of belief. And like you, I would be judgmental of maybe people who believed in God and things like that. And not anymore, obviously, but so it's not belief. There is something there, and maybe the people who really have faith, they're feeling it, which at the time I wasn't. So it's like it's the feeling of it that changed. And it sounds like it's the same for you.
Yeah, and even if you believe in let's just say you said, hey, I believe in energy, because energy, science can show you that there's molecules, right? You and me and this desk I'm sitting at, they're all made up of the same things, right? If we go all the way down. So then if we're all made up of the same things, how are you and I conscious,
Yeah.
and the desk isn't, right? But the desk is all simply, it's also molecules. And I think
Well,
that
so just, so we
yeah,
assume, maybe we've never bothered asking the desk.
maybe, right? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Maybe the desk is conscious. I think that the idea that even if you just believe in energy is alive and has a movement to it. And I think one way to think about this is when you walk into a room, or you've been in a room where the whole energy of the room changes when someone walks in, for good or sometimes for bad. But yet sometimes when that happens, person walks in a room, they haven't made contact with other people in the room yet. They simply opened the door and walked in, but their energy will vibrate or connect with people throughout the room.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, that piece is that there's something at play that's bigger than us, even if it's just the energy, because if something that's not you can change you, then that means there's something bigger than you.
Yeah.
I also am very connected with, for me, nature is such a modality of spirituality, because if you just take humans away, if we just made humans go away for a minute, nature works all on its own, right? Like we don't have to do anything to make the plants grow, to have it rain, to have the sun help the plants, animals function without us. So that there's something at play, almost like behind the scenes, or even inner working inside of it, that has life operate without anybody controlling or doing anything.
I love that. And so, and you're like it feels like a magical thread that we are onto, but how did spirituality, maybe did it inform your career actually in a particular way?
No, I think spirituality is one of the reasons I've been successful, but it did not start that way. When it started, I had a very masculine dynamic when it came to my business. So I used to open and run hospitality businesses, restaurants, bars in New York and Los Angeles, and open them in other states. And that was a very masculine driven business. Work late hours, hustle, grinding, very kind of step 1, step 2, step 3, and just do the things that need to get done. And when I left that world, because I was just unfulfilled and not satisfied, and I got into coaching, and I got coach training, and I started moving through that process, I tried to bring that same mentality. Well, I'll just make 50 phone calls. I'll go to 1 million networking groups, right? I'm just going to apply hard work and discipline. That may have worked. I don't know. At a certain point, though, it felt like I was fighting against a stream. Like no matter how hard I paddled, the water was just coming too fast. And at some point, through meditation, through yoga, through starting to change that conversation, that little boy running my spirituality conversation, because that's how a lot of it actually started through meditation and yoga, I started to learn about surrender and trust and faith. And I started to practice things like, in meditation or yoga, kind of asking for what I was looking for, asking for the types of clients, or asking to meet people. And then, of course, I had to go do things, right? I had to go out and meet, but kind of have some trust that it was on its way to me. Sometimes I think of it like FedEx or UPS. I'll think of something and I'll think of the universe as delivering it to me. Yeah. And if it's not here, it's on the truck, it's on its way, it's in process. What's nice about that, though, it allows you to like relax, it allows you to slow down, it allows you to almost say like, hey, I don't have to be responsible for everything. Now I got to do my part, right? I got to show up. I have to have conversations. I have to ask. I have to act in trust and faith, but that there is something outside of me that's active. And what I noticed when I started doing that was my whole way of showing up lightened, soft, got softer, got easier. And I would show up to the same places I would show up before. Yeah. And I would be, this time though, I would be meeting the right kinds of people. And what I've noticed over time, which I love to share this, the more I've leaned into spirituality, the more I've leaned into energy, faith, trust, manifestation work, the less I've had to work, and yet the more money I've made. I have not made more money through working harder. Doesn't mean I don't work, right? Of course I work, right? So nobody, God's not going to type keys for me on the computer. I have to show up to a conversation like this, right? But why did you show up why did you even connect with me, right? I think that I think that is so much of what that is I love doing things like this. I love sharing. I love just providing information to people for free and to help people. And so that stuff shows up where it didn't before.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's particularly important for our viewers. Is like when you team up with this, whatever is there, it's less of a struggle and it's more of a collaborative effort. And like you do your part, the universe or whatever you want to call it does its part as well. Yeah, and like you say, so you say then it allowed you to work less and receive more.
Yeah, I actually just thought when you were saying that, here's the most magical and best example. When I started coaching, I think I charged like $500 a month to work with me for the throughout the month.
Yeah,
and all the people that would come into my sphere would either be that would be fine for them or it would be too much.
Okay.
And then along the journey, I raised my rates. Let's say I doubled my rates, $1,000 to work with me for a month. What was interesting was the people that started to show up then paid $1,000. But when I was at 500, I never met anyone that would pay me $1,000. It was like, but I didn't go to new networking groups. I didn't go find people that were richer. I just kept doing exactly what I was doing, but saying, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm up to. And like putting out into the universe who I am at this new level. And this has continued to happen. So each time I've created bigger packages or higher rates or whatever. And I first have that fear, oh my God, people didn't hire me at this rate. How am I going to get the next rate? And I lean in and just trust, you know what, you got to take that step first. I have to step into that higher rate and say that's who I am and that's what I'm up to. Every single time, once I step in and really own it, those people show up at that new, and the people at the lower, it doesn't mean that, of course, sometimes people come around and say, oh, that's too much or whatever. But it seems like there's feels almost magical. Like, how is it that when I was at 500, I never met anyone who would pay me 2,000? And then when at 2,000 people, I don't meet anyone that wants to pay 500. The people, it's different people that somehow are around me. Yet my friends are mostly the same. I still go to the same networking things. I can't explain it, but right, it's that like doing the same or doing less and somehow generating more. And I think that is a big piece of, that's a big piece of the feminine. Nature doesn't work hard. Nature just allows like a plant to bloom. It just blooms. The plant doesn't have to work hard. A garden or a forest isn't working hard. It's just allowing the cycle to take place.
I love that. And I love what you said as well about showing up, that you had to show up at the new level. So like it sounds like, we first need to have the inner state in order to see the unfolding coming to us. Is that what you meant? Because I wonder for that could be great advice for people who are listening to us, that how do you do that when, I don't know, maybe when you're so afraid because you're out of a job, or how do you do that when you're into the big company, so stressed out and the stakes are high, and how can we put ourselves in that the right state for this magic that you described to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's important to always consider wherever you are. That, right, when I started my journey in my own business with my faith, I felt like I was in a good place, right? I had all my basic needs met. I had food,
Yeah.
air, shelter, water. I didn't have a lot of money like stacked up in the bank, but I
Uh-huh.
also had people to support me if my business, right? I had friends and family that wouldn't have let me be out on the street. So
Mhm.
I think like if, you know, if somebody's listening to this and they have not enough money for food or they can't pay rent, it's a different conversation. And I think we have to have like empathy and compassion for everyone's at a different place on their journey, right? Those people, somebody that doesn't have the basic necessity needs,
Mhm.
I think they just need to like be focused on getting those needs met and being right there, like the next step in that journey.
Mhm.
Because if we don't have that, you can't be focused on the thing, some of the things we're talking about. Now you can still have faith, obviously, spirituality, but you're not like trying to necessarily build like some business and networking. That's not
Of course.
necessarily the thing in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing goes for someone who's at the other end of the spectrum. I have plenty of clients who make 7, 6, 7 figures, but they're miserable. They're
Mm.
not happy in their lives. And I think for them to just jump to like, you know, pretending to be happy is not also a thing. I think we have to kind of look at like what's the next step on that, you know, if we're climbing a staircase, right? We don't leap 10 steps. We take the next step. I do think that when we get to a level that we feel comfortable at,
Yeah.
then we can take a bigger leap, right? When we get our legs underneath us, we're strong, we're
Uh-huh.
healthy, we feel good. And I think that we all have to start there. Even when I started my business, I took lots of clients that were not really the clients I necessarily wanted. I took clients for less money because I did have to build a foundation, right? I had to
Mm.
get good at what I was doing. And I had bills coming in that needed to be paid, right? There's some real life search. And so I think everybody's foundation is different, right? Some people can clear out a space in their closet and make it an office and flourish.
Yeah.
Some people that's just not going to work for. So I think that's a really important thing to consider is what's just kind of are your basic needs met and what's the next step?
Mm.
And sometimes when we look at the next step, can we take a leap from there?
Yeah.
Or do we need to take that next step? If you told me, hey, I need you to multiply your rates times 5,
Uh-huh.
that's too big of a leap.
Yeah.
I'm not there to say, hey, I'm going to make this up. I charge $1 million to work with me, which
Yeah.
is like what Tony Robbins charges to
Yeah.
work with him.
Wow.
Right. I'm just in my journey. I'm just not there yet. And I think it's really important to really be clear and trust yourself that you can say, okay, I'm at this level. I can see what the next level is, or I can see 3 levels. Where can I stretch myself enough that it's a challenge, but not stretch myself so much that I don't even believe that it's possible?
Okay. There's a right balance to find. Actually, speaking of balance, because I know that there is some like a perspective, you know, that you mentioned, maybe interesting to talk about, is the balance between creating the results that we desire and living the life we enjoy.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean? And because to me just said like that, it's not, is it the difference between achieving and enjoying, or between doing and being, or like I'm interested to find out.
Well, you know, as well as anyone listening to this, we live in a world that's about results, right?
Yeah.
Get things done, make money, people holding each other to high standards. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with results. We all want more things, or to get married, or to have more money, or to take a trip. Those are all the results. But what I noticed, just not even in that long, my life was really focused on results, 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 get clients, make money,
Yeah.
you know, buy this, find this partner, blah, blah, blah. Was that most of the time you're in the journey, not the result. So when you're looking, if you want love is the thing that will happen one day, right? When two people realize they love each other.
Yeah.
But how long did you spend before there was the love, right? In the dating, in the working on yourself, in the bad dates, the good dates, meeting this person, connecting with them. To not be enjoying that piece
Mm.
is like 90, probably 95% of your life. So then you get one moment of the love or the marriage or whatever. And it's like, wait, I missed 95% and I had one moment. And then when that moment's over, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I noticed I was living my life like that, right? You get the car, you get the house, you get the person, whatever, and you have these moments of bliss.
Yeah.
But then it's the next thing again. And I had that thought of, wait, what if I could find a way to make the chunk the experience, like that, whatever that big chunk is that you're spending most of your life doing, right?
The journey, the travel part.
Yeah, the travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if we could make that the piece? And one of the things that I loved about it is for me, it became about adventure. I love the term adventure because for an adventure to exist, you have to not know what's coming next. You also have to be open-minded. You have to be ready. You have to be, I don't know if you remember Indiana Jones movies with Harrison Ford. They're my favorite example of adventure because he would think, okay, I have to go, find this, artifact, right? Or whatever he was going to go find. And he knew that there would be danger. He knew that there would be some sort of difficult part, and he would prepare for that. But he didn't know all the crazy things that would happen along the way. And he sort of embraced them. And that's what made him not only special, but as a viewer, when we would watch those movies, that's what we loved. We got to go on this adventure with him. And so that idea for me was like, well, what if everything could be an adventure? What if me finding love could be an adventure? What if me building my business could be an adventure? And when I started to play with that, all of a sudden, where I used to think, oh, this is hard, building my business always felt hard. I got to do all these things. I have to manage all these things. I have to make sure I'm getting these things. And that just didn't feel fun. So who wants to show up when feels hard? Nobody really does. No. But if it's an adventure, or if it's play, or if it's, you get to make up whatever you want your experience to be. Adventure is the experience I want. Then all of a sudden, the journey felt like I was on a ride. And so even when I was in the low parts of the ride, what do you know about when you're at the low part of a ride? Well, it's going to go back up and back down. So it was when I would hit low points, well, on my adventure, I could say, ooh, what's coming up next, right? Yeah. Something exciting is going to happen because I'm about to go up really high. Because once you're low, you can only go so low. Yeah. And same thing, once you're up high, you know that you might go down, but then you also know that there's something on the other side of that.
Yeah, it's like the next mountain. It's like, oh, it's going to be even more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But actually, because speaking of, adventure and love, like you've had a absolutely unique way to find the love of your life. And could you talk to us a little bit about it and what you learned from this experience?
I think like everyone else, I just turned 40. I've lived, I was dating and alive before there were apps. When we were
you were dating?
I was dating and alive before there were apps like Tinder and Bumble and all those things. So I dated in my 20s like everyone else does, just meeting people, being fixed up, going places, whatnot. And then in my 30s, in and out of relationships, there were apps and these things. And what I noticed in my, with about a year ago, probably, was dating's not fun anymore. It lost, when I was in my 20s, it felt so exciting, meeting new people, going to cool restaurants. And I think, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't like looking for the result. I just wanted to have a good time. So I had a good time. And then as I got into my 30s, relationships got more serious. They get more intense. The feelings are heavier because people have expectations, apps. What'd you say? Baggage?
Yes. The baggage gets heavier along the way.
Totally. Yeah. The expectations get heavier. The baggage gets heavier. Then we get to this place where now we have apps, and apps is like, almost like, how do we go faster? So now you're carrying heavier baggage with stuff from the past you haven't dealt with expectations you desire, and now we're going to do it faster. Yeah. Seems a
The
little
recipe
crazy.
for disaster, right?
Yeah. And what I noticed was I was not having fun. And the people around me that I would watch dating in their 30s and also were not having fun. And everyone was complaining, I hate dating, I hate the apps, you know. And I thought, wait, what if I apply the exact same thing that I'm saying about your experience to the result of relationships? Because I was clear at this point, I wanted marriage, I want a family, I want to build a life with someone, and I hadn't been able to get that. So, well, let me actually say one thing. I also was clear because of the work I've done with my own coaches and in therapy also, that hey, I have blind spots. I pick certain types of women almost over and over again. They're not bad, they're great women, but they're not the best matches for me.
Mhm.
And my blind spot has me look for things that I think I like or things I think I want, but ultimately they're not the things that are going to help produce the best relationship.
Yeah.
Right? We often do that. You know, we eat foods that we love that don't make us feel good.
Yeah.
You're right. We do all sorts of things that actually don't serve us, but we don't realize it always in the moment. And so what I did was I created a basically online dating adventure experiment. So I had 2 tickets to a trip to Tulum for a good friend's wedding that had been postponed and all these things because of the pandemic. And I went, you know what? I'm gonna let 5 friends of mine who I trust, they're, you know, they weren't gonna like sabotage me or mess with me. They're gonna pick who I take on this trip to Tulum. Now that sounds a little crazy. We also put it online. And
Yeah.
again, I should say it all kind of started as a joke. It was like,
Yeah.
what if you all picked for me? We took you all know what I like, you know what I'm committed to, and you see me from outside of my perspective. So what if we let you all pick? And we put it up online as a joke, and it kind of went viral. It got picked up I was on the news in San Diego in California. I, you know, was on a lot of podcasts. I had people sending their friends through social media. And one of the things we noticed right away was to say, hey, if I said to you, hey, do you want to go on a 12-day trip with a man you've never met to Tulum? I don't know if you would say yes or no to that, but a lot of people would say no, right? It's too risky. They're not up for the adventure.
Yeah.
So right away, people that are not up for adventure, weeded out.
Yeah.
People
Oh,
that
yes. Great filter.
right away, they're
Brilliant.
out.
Yeah.
People that don't want to travel, out. People that don't want to create a connection because we're probably going to create a fast connection, out. And then in the process, they had to get to know my kind of committee. If they liked me and my committee liked them, then I would have to talk to their friends. So, right, there was this vulnerableness that if you're not up for kind of being vulnerable and open, out.
Yeah.
There were all these things that helped us really hone in on the kind of woman that would be a good fit for me. And when we came down to the very end, the judges had selected, you know, the woman that they thought was the best for me, who I actually thought was the best for me also. And the cool thing to reflect is she isn't who I might have gone out with before the contest. And she's beautiful, she's brilliant. There's nothing wrong with it's just not the shiny object that I would have been distracted by my ego.
Yeah.
And when I got to know her and see her and connect with her, she's exactly what I want, but from like my heart, from essence, from true desire, not from kind of what my ego had kind of distracted me, which were all the relationships that never worked.
Yeah.
And
Probably based on patterns, that unconscious pattern and the stuff that we don't see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, look, diet's a really easy way to think about this. You know, it's if we made people go vegan, there's a lot of people that would have all these thoughts and feelings, but they never tried it.
Yeah.
And then like me, I actually went vegan for all of 2020. I never thought about it. I tried it for 1 year also as an experiment, as an adventure. And I found out I loved it. I felt so good. I became so much more, I had so much more energy. All these things happened that I never would have known if I didn't try something different than my patterns and my behavior.
Yeah.
And so I really like to say, like, Evan, my girlfriend, is she's just a different thing than my pattern and behavior that I wouldn't have been, I just couldn't have seen. It would have been in my blind spot. And I'm so glad that I created this adventure because, like I said, she is everything that I really wanted and more. And one of the things about the adventure too, is it forced us to go beyond where most people go beyond in dating. The adventure forced twists and turns that we wouldn't have expected. For instance, when we're in this process, you think you're going to go on a trip with somebody for 12 days, you better get to know them and get comfortable. So on our first few FaceTimes, we're having really deep, intimate conversations that most people would avoid up front because we want people to like them. We want to be liked. You know, we stay on the surface a lot in dating because we're afraid to be really true to who we are because it might not be well received. And none of us want to be rejected. But because of the situation, we went right in. I even learned this from her recently. She works with women a lot on dating. And she shared with me one of the biggest things that women struggle with in dating is a lot of women try to be the cool girl. They try to be the girl who the men like, and they want to get along, and they don't want to ruffle feathers or, you know, be too much. Yeah. So what happens? They're the cool girl. Guys think they're great. They get in there. And then 6 months into the relationship, the woman shares what she really desires and wants. Hey, I want to move in together. I want to get married. I want to have kids. And the guy feels like, wait, where'd that come from? And then the woman feels like a rug got pulled out from under her because she's like, wait, we've been spending all this time together, but they never really went deep up front. They played on the surface because it was safer. And I think we do that in jobs too. Because
that's the authenticity question. Is that it?
It forced us to be very authentic right up front because nobody wanted to waste time because you don't want to go to Tulum with somebody for 2 weeks who you're going to not like. And so by the time we were back from Tulum, we'd basically been dating at that point for like a month and a half. We were like so clear that we were a good match for each other and we were what we were wanted and we were in love. Like we didn't need, like it kind of moved things forward, not at a fast unconscious rate, like sometimes happens where we're just having a good time. We had like challenges, we had tears, we had very emotional and vulnerable moments. But intimacy is created through conflict. Intimacy is not created through just hanging out and having a good time. It's created through going into that conflict and coming out on the other side. And that is a completely unexpected result of this. And now we're looking at like, hey, how do we help other people do this? Because it's worked so well that we want to help actually other people create love adventures for themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And you're going to tell us, because you're coming up with a program about that and I want to hear about it. But before that, and that's why I wanted us to talk about this unique way, like that was so useful because it allowed to bypass your blind spot and work on your authenticity. How could that apply to career? I mean, would we be better off asking our dearest friends to pick the right job for us?
Maybe, you know, when it comes to career and spirituality, it took a lot of surrendering, right? To trust my friends, to lean back and let them trust them. So to me, that was part of the spirituality piece, was I had to trust something outside of me that would work for me. And so I don't know if our friends could pick our jobs for us, but I do think our friends could, I mean, they probably could pick our jobs for us. I think what we have to do is we'd have to be really clear on what we want. We have to be really clear on our desire, not what we think we're supposed to have, but what we really truly want. Then if we put people around us that really support us and support us authentically, so many of us have people around us that, you know, say things like, oh, that guy was a jerk. You know, that girl was too much. Your boss is a jerk. They don't help us look at us and say, you know, you're kind of a people pleaser. Or you're kind of a jerk, or you're lazy, you never showed up to work on time, right? I put people around me that would tell me the truth, even when I didn't want to hear it. which
Yeah.
I think was a really big supportive piece of this. And so I think if you were looking for a career, you'd still want to get clear, just like I did in a relationship. What do I want? And then if I wanted to kind of take a journey like this, I might pick one or two people and say, get them clear on what I want, but then also ask like, hey, what do you notice about me that maybe I've been doing wrong?
Mm.
And my friends could say, well, my friends would have said, you date with your eyes first.
Mm.
Obviously, we all want to be attracted to our partner, but your eyes first is not helpful because then you ignore things that are actually really important. Whereas you could date with other attributes first and then eyes could come after.
Mm.
And I think career could come like that. Eyes first might mean the job title or the amount of money or the prestige. Whereas like, who are the people that are running the company? What really matters to the company? What are its values? Where do you see yourself with that company down the road? Is this company going to help you feel the way you want to feel and evolve the way you want to evolve? And maybe friends can help you see that more than you can when you're just like, oh my God, look how much money they're going to pay me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's an amazing parallel. Actually, I wasn't expecting that. This is a great, yeah. So, but anyway, so you've created out of this wonderful adventure, you're with Evan. Is that her name? Yeah.
Yeah, Evan. Yeah.
Evan, you're creating a program that I know we're talking about career, but like, yeah, like career, relationship, it's all part of life. So do you want to tell us a little bit in case some of our viewers
Yeah.
might be interested in a little
Yeah.
bit of an adventure?
Yeah. So we've created it's called Your Love Adventure. You can find us. We just launched the Instagram, so it's at Your Love Adventure. The website's going to be up soon. But what we're doing is we're taking what really worked here. Now, I should say, I've been coaching for about 7 or 8 years. I work with people on business, relationships, communication, leadership, again, creating actually the experience they want in their life, but also getting the results that really matter to them. Okay. And then Evan has been coaching for about 5 years, and she's a dating and relationship coach for women. Mm-hmm. So we both have been working sort of in these fields in different ways. And then our own experience has had us go, wait, our experience in business plus our experience together, we really see something powerful in being able to support people in creating their own love adventure. And that would mean, there's going to be so many different ways that we do this, but for some, it might be creating an adventure like I created. Yeah. For some, that's not going to be, that's not what they want, or that's not going to be what they're looking for, but really to help people identify what they want, what's gotten in the way between them and that relationship or the kinds of relationships. And then how do we kind of create that ride for them that I should say not for them, but with them. So they can find love in a new and different way that's really authentic to them. It's not the apps or just going to that local bar that you go to, but let's make the adventure specific for you.
Yeah, I love, because it's all gonna have people be clear and work on their authenticity, which can only be beneficial with their career, like getting that level of honesty with themselves that you need to have in order to have a relationship. It's probably going to really help open some eyes onto what do I really want in what I'm doing all day, every day as well. There's authenticity that's so important. So yeah, I think it's actually very relevant. And actually, so this is and even a segue into like that another topic like that's important to you. I know, like the piece about authenticity. Do you want to have a short? I know we're coming towards the end, but do you want to have a short conversation about what do you feel is more important about authenticity?
Sure. Yeah, I think the thing that I would share to keep it short and sweet, but also like maybe have it impact people is, we all talk about authenticity. I think we all want to be more authentic, but what does it mean? What does authenticity mean? It's like a buzzword, we say it, but also at the same time, nobody wakes up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, I'm not authentic, right? Authenticity to me is 5 things, and it's a combination, and then they go in order. First, it starts with integrity. You have to say and do and think. Those things have to be in alignment. Your thoughts, your actions, and your words are all in alignment. So I think something, I speak something, and I do something, and it all lines up. If that's not the case, you're out of integrity with who you truly are.
Yeah.
The second piece is what you're committed to. So if you're not committed to something, if you're not speaking, thinking, and acting in a certain way, how could you be committed to something?
Yeah.
So being clear on what you're committed to is part of who you are and your authenticity. The third piece is vulnerability. Because if you're going to put yourself out into the world and say, this is who I am, well, that's vulnerable. You've got to be willing to put yourself out there. The fourth piece is trust, that you trust you, and that you trust that you are this person, and that can even evolve, but that you can keep bringing these things and speak and live an authentic life.
Yeah.
And the last piece is faith, that with integrity, with commitment, with vulnerability and trust, those are all the areas you can control. But that last piece is faith that there's something that's kind of on your team working with you, whether it's faith in your community and your friends, or faith in something larger like a God, but that you're not on your own in this journey.
Yeah. I love the part about vulnerability, which we'd learn a lot in the Love Adventure, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe as the last, to wrap it up, because I wanted to ask you that about how to be authentic, because it's maybe it can maybe, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes again about people who are in such an overwhelm, close to burnout, too much pressure, and how are we authentic in this difficult moment, or someone who's been out of a job and struggling to find another one, and what's the do you have some advice? And that would bring us to maybe the last messages that you may have for our people today.
I think if you're in a tough situation, I think the thing that has to be is addressing what's so, not sugarcoating or pretending like it isn't. If you're struggling, if you don't have any money, or you can't find the job you want, or you're in a bad relationship, I think the first piece of authenticity is just admitting, hey, things aren't going the way I want them to go. I'm not happy, right? So many of us cover it up. We pretend things are fine, things are good. Couples say, oh, we're happily married. We make up all these things instead of just saying, I'm having a tough time right now, which is the truth. And the thing about authenticity is that piece about vulnerability. When you say, I'm having a tough time right now, people actually want to support you. People actually want to help you. But when we cover it up, we don't allow that through. So that would be the place to start. I think all the time, right? If you have dirty corners in your house, by ignoring them, they don't get cleaner. They only get clean when you go and put a light and start address the dirtiness, right? And sweep it up or vacuum it up.
Yeah.
And I think
I was about to joke, oh, that explains a lot about my apartment. No,
yeah. And it's the same with our life. If we don't acknowledge first that, hey, my health is not going so well, or my relationships aren't going so well, or my job isn't going so well, or even maybe my relationship to myself isn't going well, then we can't have it be different. And so many of us are afraid to be honest about how it is, that then we're upset it doesn't change, but we've never really been willing to say, whether I like this or not, I don't like how it's going.
So being open to admit it, and maybe even being open to admitting it to other people is maybe could be the key to admitting it very honestly to ourselves, or I guess
Maybe.
It goes both ways.
Yeah, it could be. I definitely think you do need to admit it. You have to say it to yourself first. You gotta get real with you before you get real with anybody else.
And for people who are on the opposite side of the spectrum, choking to, I don't want to say choking to death, but such high pressure, high stakes, maybe golden handcuffs and stuff like that. Do you have any advice for people like that?
I think the first thing has to start, I believe, with not only that honesty piece, but what do you really desire? What do you really want? So if somebody's I love the golden handcuffs is such a problem for so many people, right? I have clients that make plenty of money, but they're unhappy. So they'd have to admit first that, wow, money isn't everything. which is tough for some people, right? A lot of us are put so much value on money. Then we'd have to say, what do you really want? Because most of them are not saying, I don't want to have money.
Yeah.
But most of them are realizing, wow, I want a family, or I want connection, or I want intimacy, or I want adventure, or I want fun, or I want to travel, whatever it is. And then you could kind of dig in if you get really clear on what you desire, and not what you desire because society's told us, right? We want money because society tells us we should have that. But what do you really desire? And then what would be, I think, again, a baby step. What's one step to that? And that could mean, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to quit your job where you have golden handcuffs. Maybe you have to start showing up at work differently. Maybe you need to wake up an hour earlier and start writing that novel you wanted to write, or stay up an hour later or write that novel. Maybe just by showing up at work earlier. When I was in the hospitality business and I didn't know what I wanted to do, the first thing I did, because I was lost, I wasn't happy, it was a great job, I was running restaurants, was I decided I'm going to be positive. So I would show up to the office and people thought I was crazy because the restaurant industry is tough and challenging. It's often filled with negativity and challenges. And I would show up and look at everything through a positive lens. And the thing was, it wasn't fake. People would be like, oh, he's just being, it was a choice. Instead of choosing to be negative and viewing things through a negative lens, I made a choice. I'm going to be positive and view them through a positive lens.
It reminds me of a great, sorry to interrupt, a great quote that a positive attitude may not solve all your problems, but it will certainly annoy enough people to make it worth the effort. I think that's
great. It feels better. You know, it didn't solve any of my problems, but if I was positive, I was happier.
Yeah.
So job was the same, problems were the same, but at least I was enjoying the journey instead of being miserable on the journey trying to solve the problems.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And we are back to the making the journey instead of the result the most important part, honoring the journey rather than the outcome. Yes, I really like that. And so, because we are speaking about authenticity, it just so happened that this is the free gift that you're offering to our viewers is about authenticity. It's called it's the guide. Hold on, the Authenticity Accelerator. Yeah. Yes. And you're being very generous, because not only are you offering this this little guide that is really like being coached through, you're asking questions and it's really like being coached by you through this guide, but you're also offering a 30 minutes conversation with you.
Yeah, it does require, which I love. I have some people, you have to reach out to me to get it. You want the 30-minute conversation, you got to send me an email, which on purpose, right? A lot of us want things and we're not willing to do anything to have it go different. So it's like, hey, I'm here. The invitation is there. If you email me at alex@thedreammason.com and say, you saw me on this summit or you watched your summit, we'll set up a 30-minute call and we'll go from there. But yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Oh, this is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex. Brilliant conversations. I think the work through relationships has a lot to teach us as well about how to show up in work, probably, and authenticity and adventure. So love it. So thank you so much again. And so I encourage our viewers to listen to you on your podcast, read the book, and reach out to you if if they feel that they're at the right time to step into something different. So thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks to everyone who watched us today, and I'll see you in the next interview. Bye.